choyamba ine ndiwosangalala kwambiri lero kuyankhula ndinu monga mukumbira nthawi ya kampeni nalonja kuti once in a while tiziyankhulana. So today I'm very glad to come back and to tell you what has happened during the last 6 months. Tisanapitire choyamba tiyamike Mulungu kuti mapemphero athu amvedwa. Monga mukumbukira Mulungu atha nafunsa Malawi wonse lachisanu loweruka ndi la Mulungu kuti tonse tipemphere machachi onse chokera ku Nsanje mpaka ku Chitipa kuti mvula ibwere. Choncho tikuthokoza kwambiri kuyamika Mulungu kuti mvula yagwa. Ndikudziwa kuli madera ena kumene mvula sinagwe. Tipitize kupemphera kuti kumadera amenewo mvula igwe. Komanso ine ndikupepesa anthu ambiri monga ku Blantyre ndi madera ena kumene nyumba zawo zinagwa chifukwa cha mvula. Tiyesesa kubathandiza anthu amenewo kuti nyumba zawo zikonzedwe. Lero ndiwosangalala kwambiri kuyankhula ndinu. Ndiyankhula mu Chizungu koma ndikamaliza ndichisamale mchichewa. Ndiye uthenga uwu speech imeneyi izamasulidwa muchichewa komanso muchitumbuka. Pakati pani kuyankhula anthu ena ali kumasulira uthenga uwu speech iyi muchichewa ndi muchitumbuka. Fellow Malawians, our country Malawi remains one of the poorest countries in the world, ranking 170 out of 187 countries. On the Human Development Index, HDI 2013, a position it has been stuck on since 2010. As you all know, the HDI measures long-term progress in 3 basic dimensions of human development, namely a long and healthy life, access to knowledge, and a decent standard of living. Between 1998 and 2013, Malawi's annual HDI increase averaged about 1.4% against an average annual population increase of 2.2%. This suggests that the human development has been too slow. When my party, the Democratic Progressive Party, went into government in May this year, it inherited empty coffers following the infamous Cashgate scandal that was perpetrated by the previous government. The scandal was characterized by a huge pilferage of public funds due to organized fraud and corruption, and led to a withdrawal of development assistance that is channeled through the national budget. The economy was in shambles as a result, and the cost of living skyrocketed. The impact on the lives of Malawians was severe. Malawians remember that the DPP government inherited huge domestic debts and enormous areas owed to providers of goods and services to the government. High political aggrandizement, self-glorification, and massive corruption were characteristics of most of the period between mid-2012 and May 2014. Further, the pride and confidence of the civil service was fast waning off. Our promise to the people, fellow Malawians, ladies and gentlemen, during the campaign period leading to the 2014 May elections, the DPP was guided by its election manifesto entitled, quote, "Towards a people-centered development," end of quote. Through this manifesto, we promise, among others, to fight underdevelopment, economic and social injustice, inequality, corruption, and theft of public funds and abuse of power. We promise to keep Malawi on a sustained path to development and not stop mere for political reasons, whatever constituted the good work of previous governments. We have since assessed the policies and practices of previous governments and resolved to retain the automatic fuel pricing mechanism and the flexible exchange rate regime, the return of foreign exchange bureaus, and other monetary policy measures meant to entrench the role of markets in achieving sustainable economic growth. We went further, however, by adopting fiscal reforms that will support and deepen the previous reforms. We instituted reforms aimed at running the government most effectively and efficiently as follows. We appointed a cabinet of 20, including deputies, the vice president, and the president. We structured the office of the president cabinet by moving the Department of HIV/AIDS and Nutrition and Safe Motherhood Initiative to the Ministry of Health, the Presidential Initiative on Hunger and Poverty Reduction, the Ministry of Agriculture, Irrigation and Water Development, the National Election Bureau, the Ministry of Home Affairs, and the Government Contracting Unit to the Office of the Director of Public Procurement. We also combined the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Economic Planning and Development into one to facilitate coordination of the economic management function. Further, I directed the chief executive officers of public institutions, principal secretaries, and other senior public officers would not be attending public functions except where the function or events pertain to their organizations. These reforms alone will save over 70 billion kwacha per annum. Further, my government established the Civil Service Reform Commission under the leadership of the Vice President, Right Honorable Salos Chilima. The commission aims to chart the national direction and establish national priorities in public service reforms. We want an efficient and effective public service. Once the reforms are completed, my government hopes to save an estimated 30% of government resources which are wasted year after year. State of the economy. My fellow Malawians, ladies and gentlemen, it is common knowledge that Malawi is now operating without general budget support, meaning we have to rely more and more on ourselves to deliver the services that Malawians need. Moreover, in the spirit of good economic governance, we can only spend what we have. It is against this background that my government does not allow unplanned expenditures and has stepped up efforts to deepen adherence to the existing economic governance laws. The past 3 months have seen our currency losing close to a quarter of its value in relation to the US dollar, and the impact shows strongly through inflation rise to the associated rising costs of our imports. This inflation has exerted pressure on interest rates, hence lowered private investment and employment. Much as seasonality explains part of the kwacha depreciation, a significant part of it is attributable to speculation. But I have better news. The kwacha has since stabilized. I'm hopeful that the domestic currency may even appreciate soon, because we are doing everything possible to get the economy on the right track. Government has put in place policies that will translate into increased exports in order to increase foreign exchange earnings, which are needed to defend the domestic currency. My fellow Malawians, despite the aforementioned challenges facing our economy, the financial system has stabilized and developments are visible in the financial institutions and the capital markets. Let me cite a few as follows. The payment system remains stable and no major system disruptions have been experienced during the past months. Payments, clearing, and settlement of transactions, therefore, are proceeding smoothly. The banking sector remains sound on account of a favorable macroeconomic environment and improving banking practice. Despite the average return on equity declined to 31% from 8.7%, the banking sector remains stable. Other sectors that remain profitable are the insurance industry, although this sector has to watch against the risk associated with investments in money markets. The pension sector, despite its concentration risk coming from limited long-term investment options, the stock market, despite the fact that the market is shallow, are not effective in providing the alternative source of raising capital as expected, and the microfinance sector, despite a drop in the loan repayment rate due to the combined impact from a lean agriculture marketing season and persistent non-remittances or payroll reductions. Of course, risks to the economy continue, and the government is specifically working its way forward with the uncertainty regarding the assumption of budgetary support, delayed donor flows, and low tobacco prices. Inflation remains a risk that has to be tamed moving forward. Water situation in Blantyre. My fellow Malawians, I'm very aware of the water challenges in Blantyre, and I assure everyone that the government is doing everything possible to not only solve the problem for now, but to set the Blantyre Water Board to be able to supply sufficient water for the population up to year 2040. The build-up infrastructure is aged and has outlived its design capacity, which was meant for a population of 500,000 people up to the year 1999. Today, BWB has over 1 million customers. Further, due to inadequate rains in the year 2012 to 2013, the Mood Dam, which produced about 10% of the board's water production, dried up by October 2014. Thirdly, electricity, which costs BWB about 270 million per month to pump water from Kula, 40 miles away from the city, has been another challenge. I would like to thank the residents of Blantyre for their understanding. We embarked on a total rehabilitation of the BWG production facilities and replacement of pumps at Walker's Ferry and Chileka pumping stations. And by March 2015, the BWB will be able to meet all the demands of 96,000 cubic meters per day, up from the current 74,000 cubic meters production capacity. In addition, we'll construct a water supply system from Mlange Mountain at the cost of about $50 million, provide an extra 8,000 cubic meters of water per day to Blantyre and surrounding areas. Sector-specific deliverables. My fellow Malawians, in spite of what others may say, my government is very determined to turn this economy round. Today, I'd like to account to Malawians what the government has managed to achieve in the first quarter through a sampling of the deliverables as follows. 1. Office of the President and Cabinet. Oriented all cabinet ministers and principal sectors on government policies, updated the administrative common service system, cabinet directives, monitoring system, policy monitoring system, and inventory system. Performed organizational performance assessment for third and fourth quarters of 2013 to 2014 financial year. Through the Civil Service Commission, appointed 320 officers to various positions, promoted 427 officers, confirmed appointments of 35 officers, and concluded 39 disciplinary cases. To the Office of the Vice President, provided strategic leadership in the production and implementation of the public service reforms, facilitated construction of a sugar processing plant at Chikwa site in Salima under the Green Belt Initiative. Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Development. One in the Treasury, strengthened controls of IFMIs to avoid repetition of Cashgate. introduced quarterly and monthly reporting of budget performance to ministries, departments, and agencies, strengthened the cash management function. It launched and operationalized the revamped cooperation strategy, introduced a zero-coupon promissory note to clear outstanding arrears, completed a public financial management reform study as a basis for implementing a public financial management reform program. Accountant General's Department decentralized bank accounts at the Reserve Bank of Malawi for all ministries, departments, and agencies. Successfully effected the interface between EPICO IFMIS and local councils Serenic Navigator. Institutionalized pre-audit services at the Accountant General's Department Central Payment Office. Ministry of Labor and Manpower Development. Conducted function review for the establishment of community colleges. Finalized career guidelines book for technical colleges in Malawi. Identified and withdrew 200 children in child labor and present further 1,230 children for engaging in child labor. Conducted 184 labor inspections, handled about 6,000 labor complaints, and completed 50 occupational safety and health inspections meant to ensure safe work environment. Launched the TEVIT policy. Minister of Transport and Public Works completed major works on the Blantyre, Zomba, Lilongwe, Western Bypass, and Ngabu Bangula roads. Commenced feasibility and detailed engineering design study on the rehabilitation of the Sena line and completed the rehabilitation of the Nkaya Nayuch line. Procured air traffic control consoles and very high frequency VHV communication equipment and the Chileka instrument landing system. Completed and validated first interim report on the navigability of the Shire-Zambezi waterway with a final report expected early in 2015. National Audit Office produced the final cascade forensic report from which 53 case files were made and submitted to law enforcement agencies. Produced final forensic audit report for the Malawi Police 2010, 400 million kwacha fraud with 7 case files submitted directly to law enforcement agencies. Produced and submitted investigate, audit, reports on MRA and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. Ministry of Agriculture, Water Development and Irrigation. Completed registration of beneficiaries and suppliers in the 2014-2015 Farm Input Subsidy Program. Facilitated sale of 186 million kilograms of tobacco, which earned the country $352 million. Produced and distributed vaccines to over 500,000 livestock as one way of improving livestock production. Verified 2,000 patient files and handed back to the Accountant General for payment. Submitted reports to the Parliament, which the Public Accounts Committee discussed. Facilitated production of 28,850 tons of fish, which fetched 16.7 billion kwacha for the fishers. Facilitated fish exports to foreign countries, Germany, Hong Kong, United Kingdom, China, Denmark, France, Sweden, and the United States of America. Continued with design and construction of irrigation schemes in Neno, Chikwawa, Sanje, Palombe, Cholo, Mulanje, Chenji, Kasungu, Salima, Zomba, and Chitipa. Continued with the rehabilitation and construction of the Songwe River Development Program. Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. Champion and commenced implementation of the Decent and Affordable Housing Subsidy Program, the Cement and Malata Program. Enforced standards at the following major construction projects construction of National Stadium in Lilongwe, construction of Chapananga Rural Growth Center in Sanje, construction of commercial court in Blantyre, construction of clinic and food court at Capitol Hill, construction of Nkarabe Hospital, and the construction of health centers in various districts across the country. Prepared layout plans for the following areas: Area 2 extension, Dunduzo, and areas 5 and 6 in Nzuzu, Area 1351 in Lilongwe, Mzimba, and Chitipa. Initiate a survey exercise to affirm boundaries between Malawi and Mozambique along the boundary line where it is described as flowing the road in Deza, Nteu, and towards Manza. Department of Disaster Management Affairs. Coordinate development of 2014-2015 food insecurity response plan for the 640,000 food insecure people in 19 districts, December 2014 to February 2015. Developed the 2014-2015 National Contingency Plan that focusing on flood, drought, and Ebola virus outbreaks. Conducted community search and rescue training for over 800 civic protection committee members in Sanje, Kikwawa, Salima, and Karonga. Minister of Health, immunizing over 20% of all children under the age of 5 to protect them from vaccine-preventable diseases. Reviewed the National HIV and AIDS and Strategic Plan 2015 to 2025. Dispensed free ARVs to over 505,000 people and provided HIV/AIDS testing and prevention of mother-to-child transmission for all mothers delivering at public health facilities across the country. Treated over 3.7 million Malawians at public health facilities across the country, of whom 780,000 were inpatients. Supported and maintained training of 2005 medical and nursing students in various colleges and institutions across the country. Minister of Education, Science and Technology successfully mapped all schools under the school mapping exercise, and details of all education institutions in Malawi have been properly documented. Completed the construction of 1,100 classroom blocks and 8 urban schools under the LDF window. Completed civil works for upgrading and expansion of community-day secondary schools in Salima, Lilongwe, Nkhotakota, Nkarabe, Nzuzu, and Mzimba. Recruited 9,374 qualified teachers out of a total of 10,500 under ODL 3 and IPTE 7. Started recruitment process of 10,000 primary school teachers and deployed 1,108 newly graduate teachers from 2013. Achieved 65% completion rate in the construction of 24 girls' hostels and identified additional 12 new sites for girls' hostels. Completed construction of 50 school feeding facilities to support 50,000 learners in Rumbi, Karabe, Saima, Mangokido, and Deza. Decentralized payroll in all 6 education divisions. Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. Developed integrated rural development strategy aimed at improving coordination and implementation of rural development programs councils. Oriented 426 councillors on their roles and responsibilities in councils. Oriented 520 chiefs on their roles and responsibilities, as well as primary justice. Facilitated the backstopping and mainstreaming of climate change and environment issues into socio-economic profiles and district development plans for Blantyre, Balakam, Cheu, Nkhotakota, and Cholo districts. Minister of Gender, Children's Disability, and Social Welfare. Institutionalized gender and development diploma degree and master's program at the Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources. Developed gender response budgeting manual. Provided cash transfers to 30,000 ultra-poor and labor-constrained households in Balaka, Chiripa, Likoma, Mangochi, Mashinga, Choro, and Saima districts, benefiting 150,000 individuals. Submitted state-part reports on the Convention on the Elimination of Forms of Violence Against Women, Convention on the Rights of the Child, the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of Children, two optional protocols on CRC, rehabilitated 450 persons with disabilities at the community level in Zimba, Liwonde, Balaka, and Blantyre Rural. Minister of Information, Tourism and Culture finalized drafting of the National Cultural Policy, increased the number of local television channels from 5 to 10, classified 95 films and documentation of 12 national monuments, developed a tourism data bank, provided 6 tourism events, and updated Malawi's tourism profile, conducted this law enforcement and protected areas patrols and poaching patrols and sensitization exercise with 25 border patrol officers aimed at combating illegal trade and exportation and importation of wildlife resources. Ministry of Home Affairs and Internal Security produced zero-draft national migration policy, arrested 3,394 suspects in sweeping exercise, 171 illegal immigrants, and pursued 597 court cases to completion. 300,127 illegal firearms were destroyed. Processed and issued 38,194 passports and 1,120 temporary travel documents, 28 applications for citizenship, and 1,651 various permits and visas. Minister of Youth and Sports graduated 25 sports administrators on a Universal Pretoria Sports Business Management Program, facilitated the participation of the Malawi national netball team in the 2014 Glasgow Commonwealth Games, where it maintained position 5 in the world, and also the Malawi national football team in the 2015 African Cup of Nations, where it played in the group stages. Scaled up the Condomize campaign, directed reaching over 5,000 youths and 54,000 condoms distributed. Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. The Law Commission completed reforms in the Sheriff's Act and Chiefs Act, reviewed the abortion law, and undertook reforms in the Prisons Act and development of legislation sentencing guidelines. The Malawi Human Rights Commission conducted 9 investigations and complaints on reported violations of human rights, monitored 168 child care institutions, and trained head teachers. Community-based organizations and human rights groups on human rights-based approaches, and contributed to the government state party reports. The Ombudsman resolved 76 cases, established performance management system, and launched a democracy, accountability, social waste management in local councils pilot study. The judiciary cleared a backlog of 12,714 cases, representing 21%, achievement of the total planned cases of 58,910 cases in year 2014-2015, and conducted 56 camp courses across the country to ensure that vulnerable groups such as women and children access justice. Where are we heading to? My fellow Malawians, ladies and gentlemen, based on the tangible seen so far on the ground, we maintain the estimate that Malawi will grow by an average of 5.5% in 2014 from an estimated 5.0% in 2013. The rate is agreed by the International Monetary Fund, estimated 6.12% growth, the World Bank 4.4%, and the Reserve Bank of Malawi 6.3%. The Bankable Projects Compendium that we launched earlier this month provides hope for Malawi's future. I invite investors, both local and international, to take advantage of these business opportunities. On our part as government, we'll provide the environment that will make business flourish, and this creates a win-win situation between the private sector and the government. Donor disbursement of aid has an impact on Malawi's growth, since donors have traditionally funded over 70% of the development budget. But as everyone knows now, donors significantly reduced budgetary support to Malawi because of Cashgate. My government has strengthened the financial system to make sure that Cashgate never occurs again in Malawi. We have resourced fairly well the law enforcement institutions, including the Anti-Corruption Bureau, so they can do a thorough job, independent, and prosecute all suspects and recover the stolen resources where possible. We are exercising fiscal discipline and making sure that we do not disturb the macroeconomic fundamentals. We are doing everything possible to make sure that all Malawians and the international community have the confidence in their governments. We have only one Malawi, and must all work towards making our country the true warm heart of Africa. Salary strikes. I want to share with you the background to a number of developments in our country and explain why they are occurring. I would also like to inform the public how the government is dealing with these matters. We have as a country embarked on a number of initiatives that are intended to transform our country. These are aimed at improving its socio-economic status and principally to accelerate our fight against endemic poverty. As you are aware, there is a general disappointment around the country that our socio-economic performance during the first 50 years of independence was unsatisfactory. In the event, the general consensus inter alia was to demand for a transformation of the public service, which is the key instrument for economic development and the rehabilitation of other institutions. Only then, it is being argued, we stand a chance of creating conditions for achieving a better economic performance. This view was so prevalent that during the political campaign for elections, this subject dominated debates to demonstrate its importance. The Democratic Progress Party, in its manifesto, adopted public service and public finance management reforms as priority programs of the needed transformation. Program of action and wage harmonization in the public service is made the cornerstone of the public service reforms. Wage harmonization is not only necessary to revitalize the service, but is considered an important means of curbing the propensity for fraud in the service. Equally important is the fact that it restores the principle of equal pay for equal work in the public service, as was the case up to 1998, before a multiplicity of salary scales emerged. The wage harmonization policy, therefore, is not only needed to ensure the needed enhancement of the effectiveness and efficiency of the public service, but is also intended to curb the potential for financial frauds and eradicate laissez-faire attitudes that have thrived in public service, particularly during the past 2 decades. The principle of equal pay for equal work in the form of harmonization must be a core element of the transformation process and must be implemented. For it simply does not make sense that a newly recruited doctor in the mainstream civil service should receive a starting salary that is equal to the salary of a driver in the Anti-Corruption Bureau or the Human Rights Organization. Nor does it make sense that a budget director or the accountant general, for example, should receive just about half the salary of his counterparts in the judiciary or in the National Assembly. We are unlikely to get the best from such people, and we have created an environment that's conducive to fraud, which progressively led to a disregard for public money, as we saw during the Cashgate days. It is in view of this that the government has decided that as part of the needed transformation, salary scales in the public service be harmonized as they were between 1964 and 1998. Let me deviate and give you the background to the present controversies that have engulfed our country. In order to achieve harmonization, the government decided that within the budgetary limit of an average wage bill increase of 24.4%, the mainstream civil service should have a higher increment and should permit their salary scale to be notionally higher than other salary scales in the public service, except for the Anti-Corruption Bureau that remains the highest. We then allowed other scales to increase up to the new mainstream civil service salary scale. But because the scales were originally higher than that of the civil service, it followed that increments were smaller. The gist of the strike and other controversies is that those who have privileged salary scales want to continue to earn more than their mainstream civil servants' colleagues. In short, they demand equal salary increments that will maintain their superiority over the mainstream civil service. To do this, of course, means that we would have to find extra money from somewhere. There's just no money for us to increase their salary scales. Recently, the IMF program that we have signed is premised on expenditure and therefore wage containment. If we break this agreement with the IMF, the chance of reducing inflation and interest rates and return to normality will have vanished. My fellow Malawians, you can see that between wage containment demanded by the IMF and finding means to perpetuate privilege for a few people, the country must choose wage containment. However, I'm aware that they need to resolve the controversies so that the country can resume normality. For this reason, I'm prepared to continue to negotiate with those who feel aggrieved. But these negotiations must be within the legal framework. We are prepared to prevent the prevalence of anarchy that is being fueled by a few disgruntled, power-hungry politicians within and outside the country. We have the means within the law to deal with such elements of people. Lastly, I wish to appeal to all to be understanding as we pass through these turbulent times. When deciding to implement such a policy, we knew that groups within the public service that are privileged to enjoy higher salary scales would fight against this policy. I must confess that I equally expected that the sense of fairness and decency would prevail quickly. Unfortunately, unscrupulous politicians within and outside have taken advantage of the situation, perpetuate the controversy, and extend it to other sectors inside and outside the public sector. I wish to appeal to the public to support the government in this matter that is ultimately intended to enhance our economic performance and accelerate the eradication of poverty in our country, as I have explained. In conclusion, I'd like to thank all government ministries, departments, and agencies that worked so hard in the past quarter. Together, we have achieved a lot, and together we'll transform this nation. In the coming few weeks, government will announce the specific targets that each ministry and department will be pursuing in 2015. The public is therefore encouraged to directly interact and/or question the relevant ministry and/or department in line with their mandates. Further, I've directed that every 2 weeks, at least one ministry and/or department must face a